My wife secretly stole $350, $0 from our joint account to buy a house with her affair partner, then falsely accused me of draining our savings and sued me for half the property. Now it's a vicious legal battle I never saw coming. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy writing about how my wife, Sarah, turned out to be a complete liar and cheat. Honestly, I thought we had a good thing going, two professionals, building a life, planning for the future. We had our ups and downs, sure, but nothing prepared me for what I was about to find out. The craziest part, it all started with a little gut feeling that something was seriously off. You know that feeling when everything seems fine but your instincts are screaming that something's wrong? Well, that's exactly how I felt about Sarah for a while. It started a few months ago when I noticed her acting weird around money. She'd be secretive about her phone, deleting texts and calls, even hiding her bank statements. At first, I thought she was just stressed or maybe hiding a surprise for me. That's what I told myself. But then I caught her lying about small things like where she'd been, who she'd been talking to. Nothing huge, just little inconsistencies that kept piling up. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. One night, I decided to check our joint bank account out of curiosity. I'd been traveling a lot for work, so I figured I'd review our expenses. That's when I saw it. A huge withdrawal, 350 gone from our savings. I almost dropped my phone. I stared at the screen, trying to understand what I was looking at. That much money, gone. I knew we'd been saving for a house, but that amount was way beyond what we'd set aside. It was like someone had stolen our future right out from under us. I immediately went into panic mode. I called Sarah, but she didn't answer. I kept trying, my mind racing, wondering who could done this, who could taken so much money without me knowing. Then I remembered she'd been acting strange lately, coming home late, always on her phone, acting defensive when I asked about our finances. I started to get suspicious, but I didn't want to believe she'd do something like that. Still, I knew I had to find out what was going on. Next, I decided to dig a little deeper. I hired a private investigator, something I never thought I'd do in my life, but I needed answers, and sure enough, what I found was worse than I imagined. Sarah had been having an affair with this guy named Mike, a guy she met at her work. They'd been sneaking around for months. I found photos, texts, even receipts for a house she'd been buying with him on our joint account. She'd stolen all that money to buy a house with this guy, and she'd lied to me every step of the way. The betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt numb, then furious. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face about everything? I thought we were solid. I thought she loved me. But she was out there screwing her affair partner, buying a house with him and secretly draining our savings to do it. It was like everything I believed in was a lie. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. My mind kept replaying all the little moments when I should seen the signs, her secretive phone habits, her late nights, the way she avoided my eyes when I asked about money. I confronted her the next day. I was furious, but I tried to stay calm, at least on the surface. I showed her the bank statement, the evidence I'd gathered, and asked her what the hell was going on. Her reaction, pure, unfiltered denial. She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was overreacting. She said she was stressed about work, that I was accusing her of something she hadn't done. But I knew better. I saw her lie right there in her eyes. She tried to spin it, say I was misreading everything, that I was crazy for accusing her of cheating. That moment changed everything. I felt a mixture of anger, heartbreak, and deep sadness. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she betray our vows, our trust? I'd always believed in honesty, in sticking together through thick and thin. But here I was, realizing that the woman I loved had been sneaking around, stealing from us, and lying to my face about it all. My mind was racing. What do I do now? Do I confront her again? Do I pack my bags and leave? Or do I try to make sense of this nightmare? Honestly, I was lost. The whole world felt like it was crashing down around me, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. After that confrontation, everything changed. It was like I was walking around in a fog, trying to process what I just learned. I couldn't believe she'd lied so blatantly, so effortlessly. The woman I'd trusted, the woman I'd married, had been stealing from us for months, possibly longer, and using that money to buy a house with her affair partner. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was how she spun her lies, acting like I was the crazy one. She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was overreacting. I could see the smirk on her face when she said it, like she was enjoying pulling the wool over eyes. I spent the next few days in a mad scramble trying to piece everything together. I hired a lawyer thinking I'd need legal help to deal with the fallout. I didn't want to believe that my marriage was over, but the evidence was staring me right in the face. I also started digging into her phone and emails, anything I could find. It was a brutal process, sifting through her messages, trying to find the truth hidden behind her lies. That's when I discovered the full extent of her deception. She'd been lying about her whereabouts, sneaking out late at night and texting Mike constantly. The house she was buying, it wasn't just a dream, she was in the middle of closing on it, using the stolen money as a down payment. The more I found out, the angrier I got. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built together? I thought about all the plans we had, retirement, vacations, the future we'd envisioned, and how she'd thrown it all away for some affair and a house with another man. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and incredibly stupid for not noticing sooner. I kept replaying our last conversations, trying to find the moment I missed the signs. The late nights, the secretive calls, her defensive attitude when I'd ask about our savings. She'd always dismissed my concerns, told me I was overthinking, that I was paranoid. Now I saw she was just a good liar. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with it. I decided to fight back, not just emotionally but legally. I called my lawyer and we started preparing for a serious battle. She had stolen a huge chunk of our savings, and I was convinced she'd try to spin the story in her favor. That's when I learned she was planning to sue me for half the property, claiming I'd drained our savings and that I was the one at fault. The whole situation was spiraling out of control. I couldn't believe she'd actually turn things around and try to paint me as the bad guy. It was a sick game, and I realized I had to be smarter than her. Meanwhile, Sarah kept up her act, acting innocent whenever I confronted her. She'd cry, say she was sorry, and then turn around and lie again. I could see through her eyes gave her away every time. She was a good actress when she wanted to be, but I'd been around her long enough to see the cracks. I knew she was lying about everything. She claimed she'd only been unfaithful because I was neglecting her, that I'd been distant and cold. But the truth was, she'd been planning this for months, draining our account, buying a house, and lying to my face while she did it. What made it worse was the money. That $350, $0 she took. That was our savings for years. We worked hard for that. It was supposed to be for our future, for our kids if we ever had any, for our retirement. She just took it all and ran. And for what? To buy a house with her affair partner. It was beyond disgusting. I kept asking myself how I could have missed the signs, how I could have been so blind. I thought about confronting her again, but I knew it wouldn't change anything. She was a master manipulator, and I was starting to realize that I was just a pawn in her game. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and deeply hurt. I'd always believed in honesty and fidelity, and now I was faced with a woman who had lied to my face for months, stolen from us, and ruined everything. I kept thinking about the future I'd lost, our plans, our trust, our peace. I wondered if I'd ever be able to look at her the same way again. I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I had to fight for what was right, for the truth, and for my dignity. The legal battle was just beginning, and I knew it was going to be ugly. But I was determined to see it through, to uncover the full extent of her lies, and to hold her accountable for the damage she'd done. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I was deep in lawyer meetings, gathering every piece of evidence I could find: bank statements, emails, texts, even testimonies from people who knew her. I wanted to make sure I had everything solid because I knew Sarah wouldn't go down without a fight. She was already spinning lies, claiming I was abusive, claiming I'd drained our savings myself, and was trying to sabotage her. It was infuriating to see her twist everything around like she was the victim in all this mess. Meanwhile, I was left picking up the shattered pieces of what I thought was a stable marriage. One evening, I found myself sitting alone in the living room, staring at the wall, trying to process how badly I'd been betrayed. That's when I discovered even more. I found out she'd been lying about her whereabouts on more than just a few occasions. There were secret hotel receipts, hidden credit card charges, and even a false story she told her friends about going on business trips when she was actually meeting Mike. I realized she'd been planning this for months, deep in her lies, slowly pulling our life apart to build her new one with him. The thought of her manipulating everyone around her made me sick. I started feeling this strange mix of anger and despair. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we'd built? Our home, our trust, our future. I'd always been the one to handle everything, to keep us afloat, and now I was discovering she'd been secretly stealing from us, lying right to my face. It was like a punch to the gut every time I uncovered another layer of her deception. I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs earlier, if I'd been blind to her real nature all along. I kept replaying our conversations, her smile, her excuses, things I'd brushed off as normal, but now saw as parts of her elaborate lie. I knew I had to act quickly. I couldn't let her keep pulling the strings. I contacted a forensic accountant to analyze our accounts more thoroughly. I needed to understand exactly how much she'd stolen and where it had gone. I found out that she'd transferred large sums to offshore accounts, hidden investments, and even set up fake companies to funnel the money away. It was a sophisticated operation, and I was just starting to see the full scope of her deception. My emotions swung wildly: anger, betrayal, heartbreak. I felt like I'd been punched repeatedly, left to wonder if I'd ever be able to trust her again. The legal fight intensified. My lawyer told me Sarah was planning to sue me for half the property, claiming I'd mishandled our finances, that I'd drained our savings. That was a sick joke. She was the one who drained it all, but she was trying to turn it around. I knew her game: manipulate, lie, and spin the story to her advantage. I had to prepare for a long, brutal court battle. I wasn't just fighting over money anymore. I was fighting for my reputation, my dignity, and the truth. Every day I felt more exhausted and more determined. I had to prove her lies, show her true character, and get justice for what she'd done. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, crying, pleading, and acting innocent whenever I confronted her directly. Her tears were fake, I was sure of it now. She'd cry about how stressed she was, how she loved me, how she'd made a mistake. But I saw through her. I saw the cold calculation behind her eyes. She knew exactly what she was doing. Every word she said was carefully crafted to manipulate me, to make me doubt myself. That was her tactic: keep me second-guessing, keep me off balance. But I was done being fooled. I was done being the naive husband who believed his wife could do no wrong. The worst part was the realization that I'd wasted so much time trusting her. All those years, all those moments where I thought she was faithful and honest. It was a lie. She'd been planning her escape, her new life, right under my nose. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind. How did I not see the signs? But deep down, I knew she'd been hiding her true self for a long time. I just refused to see it until it all blew up in my face. Now I stand here in the aftermath, trying to pick up the pieces. The house, the marriage, the trust, all shattered. I'm still processing the fact that she stole that much money, that she'd rather run away with her affair partner than face the consequences. It's a bitter pill to swallow, knowing she's out there, possibly happy with her new life, while I'm left dealing with this mess. But I also realize I can't change what's happened. I can only move forward, rebuild my life, and make sure she doesn't get away with it. The fight isn't over yet, but I'm determined to see it through. I want her to pay for what she's done, and I want the truth to come out, no matter how ugly it gets. The court hearings came faster than I expected. And honestly, I wasn't ready for how brutal they would be. Sarah's lawyer was relentless, twisting every piece of evidence I had into a weapon against me. She claimed I'd mishandled our finances, that I'd been negligent and irresponsible, and that I was the reason she had to resort to drastic measures. It was infuriating to listen to her spin her lies, especially when I knew the truth. She'd stolen the money. She'd lied about everything. and she'd been planning her escape for months. During the hearings, I saw her in her element, smiling sweetly, acting innocent and blaming me for everything. She sat there, acting like a victim, crying fake tears and claiming I'd been abusive and neglectful. Meanwhile, I was sitting there trying to keep my composure, knowing that every word she said was a lie. I had my own evidence: bank records showing the transfers, texts revealing her affair with Mike, and witness statements from friends who saw her sneaking out late at night. I was determined to expose her, no matter how much she tried to manipulate the court. One of the most shocking moments came when she falsely accused me of draining our savings myself. She claimed I'd been reckless, that I'd blown through our money and left her with nothing. The audacity! I had to present proof that she was the one who'd stolen it all, that she'd been funneling money offshore and buying property behind my back. It was a surreal experience, seeing her lie so effortlessly, trying to paint herself as the victim, while I sat there knowing the truth. The judge seemed skeptical at first, but as I laid out the evidence, I saw her confidence waver. She tried to interrupt, to deny everything, but I had everything documented. I could feel her frustration mounting. I knew she was trying to spin her story, to turn the court against me, but I was determined not to let her get away with it. My lawyer argued fiercely, emphasizing her deception, her betrayal, and the financial damage she caused. It was a long, grueling process, but I could see that the court was starting to believe me. Meanwhile, Sarah's face was a mask of anger and disdain whenever she wasn't crying. She kept insisting I was the bad guy, that I'd been cheating on her, neglecting her, and that I'd mishandled our finances. She even went as far as claiming I threatened her and that I was emotionally abusive. I couldn't believe the audacity. I knew she was trying to sway the court, but I also knew I had the truth on my side. I wasn't about to let her manipulate her way out of this. It was during one of these sessions that I realized how far she'd go to protect herself. She brought in her own witnesses, some of her friends, who claimed I'd been controlling and abusive. It was all part of her scheme to make me look bad, to distract from her own lies. But I had corroborating evidence, and I made sure to present it clearly. I wanted the court to see her for what she really was: a dishonest, manipulative woman who'd betrayed her vows and stolen from us. As the days went by, the legal battle dragged on, and I felt the emotional toll piling up. Every hearing was a reminder that I was fighting not just for the money, but for my dignity and reputation. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, but I refused to give up. I knew the truth needed to come out, and I needed to hold her accountable. Honestly, I felt betrayed on a level I'd never experienced before. It was like losing a piece of myself, knowing she'd lied so completely and betrayed everything we'd built. One thing I kept telling myself was that I couldn't let her win. No matter how convincing her lies seemed, I had the evidence, and I had to see this through. I started to realize that this wasn't just about money or a house. It was about integrity, trust, and justice. I had to be the one to stand tall and fight for what was right. I knew this battle wasn't over yet, but I was committed to exposing her full deception and making sure she paid for what she'd done. I wasn't going to let her get away with stealing our future and destroying what we had. The fight was ugly, but I was ready for it. The court's decision finally came after what felt like an eternity. I remember sitting in that sterile courtroom, heart pounding, watching her sit there with that smug look on her face, thinking she'd already won. But the judge, after reviewing all the evidence, my documentation, her lies, the bank transfers, the witnesses, made a ruling that shocked her. It wasn't just about the money anymore, it was about accountability. The judge ordered Sarah to return the stolen $350, $0 plus interest, and awarded me full custody of the house. The court also declared her actions fraudulent, and she was ordered to pay damages for the financial harm she caused. I felt a rush of relief, mixed with anger. She had stolen from us, lied to my face, and now she was going to have to face the consequences. It was a hard-won victory, but I knew the damage had been done and trust was shattered forever. The aftermath was a brutal reality check. Sarah was furious, of course. She accused everyone from the court to me of conspiring against her. She tried to appeal, but her lies were exposed again and again. Meanwhile, I was left to pick up the pieces. I had to find a way to rebuild what was left of my life. I moved out of the house, got a new place, and started therapy to deal with the emotional scars. I still felt the sting of betrayal every day, but I also felt a strange sense of closure. Justice had been served, and I finally felt like I could breathe again. The most surprising part, despite everything, I found a strange sense of relief. I realized I'd been living in a kind of bubble, trusting blindly, ignoring the warning signs, hoping she'd change. But I learned a hard lesson. Sometimes people hide who they really are until it's too late. I also learned that I was stronger than I thought. I could face betrayal, fight for what was right, and come out on the other side. It's not easy, and I still have days where I feel broken, but I know now that I deserve better. I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect. Looking back, I wish I could tell myself to pay closer attention, to trust my instincts more. I wish I'd seen the signs earlier and acted sooner. But I also know that everything happens for a reason. This experience has changed me. I'm more cautious, more aware, and definitely more guarded. But I'm also more determined to find happiness on my own terms. I want to tell anyone going through something similar, don't let the lies eat you up inside. Fight for your truth, stand your ground, and never underestimate your own strength to survive even the ugliest betrayals. I've come to accept that some people are just not worth the pain they cause. That betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches us who we really are. I've learned to value myself more, to trust my judgment, and to be cautious about who I let into my life. It's a long road, and I know there will still be days when I feel angry or hurt. But I also know I'm moving forward, stronger, wiser, and more ready than ever to rebuild my life without her. And honestly, that's the biggest victory of all. Looking back now, I honestly can't believe I let myself get so. I thought I knew Sarah, thought we had a solid future. But the truth is, I was living in a bubble, convinced everything was perfect when in reality, she was planning her escape right under my nose. That betrayal changed everything, not just about her, but about how I view trust and honesty. It's like I was asleep and suddenly woke up to a nightmare I couldn't ignore. The whole ordeal has left me in ways I never expected. I've lost a lot: money, time, faith in the person I thought was my partner. But I've also gained something valuable: clarity. I see now that people can hide who they really are behind pretty smiles and convincing lies. And I learned that I can survive even the worst kinds of betrayal if I stay true to myself, keep fighting, and never give up on justice. One thing I've realized is that I'm stronger than I thought. I've faced heartbreak, legal battles, and a total upheaval of my world, and I've come out on the other side still standing. That's more than I could say a year ago. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to pay attention to the little signs I once ignored. I've also learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't about retaliation, but about reclaiming your peace and dignity. Now I'm focusing on rebuilding. I've started therapy to work through the emotional scars, and I'm slowly finding happiness again. I've reconnected with old friends, and I've even started dating again, carefully this time. The pain of betrayal will always leave a mark, but it doesn't have to define me. I choose to move forward stronger and more aware of what I deserve. To anyone out there going through something similar, trust your gut. Don't ignore the warning signs, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Sometimes the truth is hard and the road to justice is long, but in the end, you'll come out better for it. Never let anyone steal your sense of worth or your future. Keep your head up, stay vigilant, and remember, you are worth more than the lies someone tries to feed you. No matter how dark things seem, there's always a way back to the light.